The Doomslayer Flail and Shield, a mighty weapon combination for shattering demonic foes into 1,000 replenishing ammunition pickups. But how will it fare against a mortal enemy? Will it have the same advantages? Will it yield the same rewards?
It doesn't work!
Oh, no, okay, it doesn't work. Well, that's it. See ya. Thanks for watching the video. Hello everyone, 6.0 HEMA here, and today we're going to take a look at the combination of Flail and Shield, recently prominently featured in the computer game Doom the Dark Ages. Now, some of you may remember that I did a pretty similar video to this, looking at the Witch King's loadout of Flail and Longsword, and this video here is going to be a pretty similar vein. But for those of you who are new, what is HEMA? Well, put simply, HEMA is unchoreographed historical sparring, using techniques gleaned from real historical documents that would have been used as instructional manuals for how to use these weapons during the period they were actually used. Now, Flail and Shield doesn't really have a historical source per se, so what I'm going to be doing there is using a combination of techniques for different but similar weapon systems, a little bit of my own experience, and quite a lot of guesswork to try and make something make sense. You'll be seeing in this overview footage here that we do spar with a lot of steel weapons, but on this occasion we are not going to be using steel weapons, because if I used a steel flail, my opponent would die. No, the flail we're going to be using in this video is this flail made by Chronosaur Creations. Now, the keen-eyed among you will notice that this is the same flail from that Witch King video I was talking about, and the even keener-eyed among you will notice that it does look slightly different this time.
Wow.
Yes, that's correct. I've repainted the ball. I do go into a bit more detail about the construction and materials used in this flail in that Witch King video, so do go and check that out if you want a little more info on this flail. Now, our new shorter handle configuration fortunately does actually match the Doomslayer's flail pretty well, even though a flail of a handle this short and a chain this long is kind of uncommon in history. Instead, you sometimes see flails that are a little more like this one, or a little more like this flail. And the shield that we're going to be using is this shield here. This is simply a riot shield, sanded and painted with a little bit of rubber taped around the edge to soften it against my opponent's weapons. And you see inside, it's got the same sort of floppy elbow strap and rigid handle to hold in your hand, which is the same kind that the Doomslayer shield has. I do actually have a video on how I painted this shield, but in all honesty, my advice to you is don't do that, because every time I use this shield I need to make sure there is a dustpan and brush available to clean up after all the paint chips. We're going to be talking about footage from 3 sparring sessions today, and I don't see any reason to hang around. Let's get into the first one. It is against Longsword. This is kind of the main weapon for many HEMA clubs, and indeed our HEMA club, and the footage this time is not super long and it's not super meaty, because the pattern of how this fight goes starts to become apparent pretty quickly.
I mean, let's say you are not allowed to move that right shield counts as cover. Therefore. Then also
That's a good one.
I got through that.
It looks like it's just unscrewed. Yeah, it's the thumb.
Like that? Yeah, that's good.
You will have seen in that footage a couple of times where my opponent hits me at the same time as I hit him, but quite a lot of that fight is me dominating his longsword with my flail and shield. And it doesn't really feel like it was the flail itself that was giving me that advantage. It felt more like it was the fact that I had two weapons and therefore my opponent had two things to get around, two obstacles in between my body and his blade, whereas my opponent only had one weapon. All I had to do was deal with his longsword or protect against it, and he was completely open to being hit with my other weapon. And so because of that, for the second sparring session, we went with my opponent having two weapons. That is a combination of shield, sword, axe, spear, maybe even two swords at the same time. Who knows? I mean, I know, and that is what we did. Anyway, take a look for yourself.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah, literally, that's how I found it. But at least we won every event we took part in.
Chicken nuggets are sinking cockroach up.
I'm gonna go home and iron my shirt. You're becoming a real big doorman now, working every hour. Sleep for other people.
It's still less than
Literally, my boss he was to the cells and did the same thing, but with more variable hours.
Well, my thing is, I often never do shit now. Like 10 a.m. till about 8 p.m. And then I'll leave. For me, and see how inside the box.
Not that hand!
That's the one.
Now for that match, the roles were nearly completely reversed. I got a few good exchanges in towards the end there especially, but a lot of that footage was just my opponent steamrolling me with his combination of shield and sword, and axe and spear, and the dual swords as well. And we will talk about why I think that is a little bit later on in the video. The spear and shield especially I found very difficult to deal with because I was completely outranged and outclassed in terms of defense and offense. And that got me thinking, well, maybe if our goal is to try and find a more even matchup for the flail and shield, then why don't we take a look at a polearm. Outwardly, all that footage is a little bit difficult to parse, but I can tell you that there were roughly an equal number of hits scored each, and by that I mean there were roughly an equal number of clean hits from me to my opponent, as well as from my opponent to me, as well as exchanges where we hit each other at the same time, and as well as exchanges where we just got completely tangled up with one another. And to be honest with you, that sort of exchange especially is pretty accurate for armoured Poleaxe fighting, especially if you're of the Talhofer school, that is, get the Poleaxe, drop the Poleaxe, wrestle. I consider this matchup to be the most even of all the matchups that we've looked at today, but does this mean that I consider flail and shield the equal of Poleaxe? No. The flail is a very difficult weapon to wield. By its nature, it's somewhat unpredictable and oftentimes is as dangerous to its wielder as it is to the opponent. Now, it is possible to get good with the flail, in as far as it is possible to stop hitting yourself in the head, which is not something that I figured out how to do yet. But for me, the one-handed flail continues to feel like more of a defensive kind of tool. And again, I do talk about this a bit more in detail in the Witch King video, but to sum it up, I compare it almost to like a cape. It's a useful tool for entangling your opponent's weapon or distracting your opponent. Obviously, it's a little bit better than a cape because it is a heavy ball on the end of a chain, so you can actually use that as an offensive weapon as well as a defensive weapon. But they operate pretty similarly. And I don't think I need to mention that the shield is also a defensive weapon, so for this loadout, what I have really is two tools that I would like to defend with and no really good solid options for offense. But for as much as I think the flail is more of a defensive tool, I don't actually think it's all that great for defense either. It's very difficult to effectively parry with, and even if you were able to parry, it's nearly impossible to bring back into bear and riposte with it in an efficient action in the same way that you would be able to with a solid weapon. For example, a sword. So do I think flail and shield is an effective weapon combination? Well, yes, in some circumstances it is, but in all of those circumstances where it's effective, it's still probably less effective than a more traditional weapon, be that a sword, an axe, whatever you fancy. And I suppose that then begs the question of, why do I even bother with this flail at all? Well, let me tell you, it is because it's fun. That's it, it's as simple as that. It's a very fun thing to use. It's fun to use against someone, and it's fun to have someone use it against you, because you get to test all sorts of skills from across all sorts of disciplines, see how different things work in different situations. And if you want to pick up one of those flails for yourself, there are details in the description. Well, that pretty much wraps us up here for the moment. I will have more videos coming. Perhaps they'll be about something that isn't a flail. Perhaps they'll all just be about flails. Perhaps they'll even be about this flail. Maybe it'll be about something completely different. But for now, that's all from me. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.
I will show you the greatest nightmare.
Wait for